Welcome aboard everyone, Simon here from the Wales of Wall Street. Today's video, EWT, Energy Web Token, guys. This is one of our favourite projects here at the Wales of Wall Street. Before we go into the chart where we've seen some fantastic moves of EWT in the last few days, we're going to see why that might be. And let's start off with this first of all. So we have the staking booster period announcements a couple of weeks ago. What's this relating to? This is relating to something that we'll go on to in a second, but more importantly about the staking capability of EWT. Now, this is something that's really exciting for me as a holder, and I'm sure many of you out there will be just as excited as well. So they announced a few weeks back about the boost period. So this is probably going to encourage a lot of people to jump into EWT and get involved in this. So for the first 3 months of the staking period, there will be a whopping 21.79% APY given out for staking your EWT tokens. I haven't got information on how we stake just yet. That in itself is a topic around the coding aspect, which is here. So 21 hours ago, our staking contract repository has been open source and can be found here. So contribute to the Energy Web Foundation staking pool development by creating an account on GitHub. That is this here. I have no idea what half this stuff is. It's mainly about coding and developing. So quite clearly, this is now being urged through, hopefully on the subject of Energy Web's promise to have the staking functionality available by the end of this year. So we are very much fast forwarding ourselves to a point right now where the coding and the development aspect is being created to essentially allow the staking capabilities of the Energy Web token for us as retailer consumers. Like I said, I don't know the ins and outs of whether this will be done through certain exchanges or whether it will be done directly through a specific wallet via Energy Web. But as soon as we know, of course, we will indeed be telling you, no doubt about it. So I haven't seen any coding aspects in here just yet in related to perhaps integrations with other exchanges. That's not to say that it's maybe hidden in here somewhere else, but for me right now, I'm just seeing top line aspects of partial on staking and staking. So all the coding mechanisms needed for the staking protocol to occur. It's quite amazing, really, if you think about it, how this all works. But there any developers out there and are able to decipher this for me, let me know in the comments below what is going on here. Maybe I need some lessons. Maybe my next deployment will be about creating blockchains or this kind of stuff. Who knows? But let us know if you have any information on that. And finally as well, a couple of other points that have come out in the last few days. Partnerships with the likes here of Elia Corporate around electric vehicles, and particularly the really awesome integration with the likes of BMW Group. Now, I'm going to treat you to this wonderful LinkedIn video. I'm going to shut up for a minute and we're going to listen in to this awesome little partnership as to why we think or see the aspect of how powerful things like the EV industry will become, utilizing things like digital passports and self-sovereign identities to not only identify vehicles and the historic background of them, but us as using them as well. So let's take a look at this video, guys. I'm just going to switch my audio off and we'll have a listen.
Hi Kai, so I've come to pick your brains today about the DLT Lab and digital passports. Can you tell us a bit more about what it is exactly that the DLT Lab does?
Yeah, so in the future we want to encourage decentralized devices such as electric vehicles, heat pumps or batteries to participate in the grid because we need that decentralized flexibility. At the same time, we have to lower the barriers of integration for these devices to make it user-friendly and applicable to millions of devices. So we started in 2020 with the DLT Lab and we're testing a new form of identification. It's called self-sovereign identity. We see a big advantage of this technology for the power and mobility sector, but let me show you how this looks in our proof of concept.
Okay, so what are we looking at exactly?
So this is our dashboard, and here you see two vehicles. And if you click on this vehicle, we see the representation of the digital passport of that vehicle. In this case, BMW sent us information about the vehicle that we can verify independently through that new technology. And BMW can now request access to a flexibility service that we have to approve. And we can approve that now for this specific vehicle or to all types of that vehicle. And that claim is then sent to the car, and that car stores it in its digital passport.
Okay, and can we see it in action?
Yeah, actually this car is today in Berlin, and I would suggest that we move to the charging station and meet the two other project partners.
Perfect, let's go. Earlier, Kai explained to us why digital passports are so important for Elia Group. Can you tell us a bit more why this technology is so important for a company like BMW as well?
A digital identity for the car will help us and our customers to create many innovative and forward-looking use cases. So one of those use cases is the one we have at hand. The vehicle, charging station and energy grid interact on the basis of trusted and verified identities. So I'm very happy that we have reached a first milestone in this project.
So, Robert, can you just take us through the process?
Here, the vehicle and the charge point are both connected to EWT's open charging network, and that's where they can share their data with other parties. Most importantly, all the data stays with the vehicle, stored inside its digital passport, and we made all of this possible by keeping the user's privacy in mind, but also fulfilling industry requirements.
So, Kai, I have one final question for you, if that's okay. What has this test demonstrated?
So today we demonstrated the potential of decentralized identifier. We were able to identify the vehicle and to share trusted data about it. And secondly, we linked it to a charging station and received metering data from specifically this vehicle. And by connecting both, so the vehicle ID and the metering data, we can now start with flexibility use cases.
If you want to find out more, head to Elia Group's innovation website.
Well, wasn't that just absolutely lovely to listen to, guys? For those that perhaps maybe found that a bit confusing or maybe need a bit more of understanding. So there's a couple of aspects really that Energy Web Token are bringing to the table, not just from the energy aspect of being able to buy and sell energy via tokenomics or surplus energy back onto the grid or to other people within the network. From the aspect of the EV side and cars in general, I mean, there's a lot of projects out there. There's one I've been following recently, like Car Vertical and things like this, where you're monitoring and having the historic aspects of cars, whether that's from the manufacturing perspective or it's historic information such as, you know, new parts being added to the car or anything like that. Whenever a change is made, or because of the fact that these cars will be on essentially what they called the smart grid, I guess, back in the day in my time at the AIIT, it's kind of involved itself into this full-on blockchain mechanism. It gives you the identity of the car. So if you go and buy a used car, for example, you're going on the basis of what you see, maybe some service history or things like this. But sometimes, not all the time, but some garages can sell cars that have just no historic documentation whatsoever, or they might have had things done to the car that haven't been logged or officially documented. So this kind of aspect of the digital passport means that the whole car is connected within itself, as well as on the other grids, and anything else in terms of supply and demand for energy usage and capacities and this, that, and the other. Because one day, I'm sure, you'll just be driving past houses or things like this that have the ability, using like Web 3.0 hotspots and stuff like that, to essentially wirelessly charge your car and that's just a very simple top line mechanism of it. But the whole digital passport aspect is basically concluding the historic information and the data behind the car that you've purchased, and it's kind of full on operational data and statistics, which can be utilized for many things. So the data aspect is obviously huge in itself and can be used a multitude of different levels. So I think it's a very interesting concept, obviously stage, and I think this was something that will definitely develop. It's not an entirely new theory. Like we said, we've covered some of these kind of projects already. Things like Blocks Move, we cover like Power Ledger, and we always talk about the topic of how energy will be tokenized soon and being able to be interoperable and move about on blockchain. It's quite a big thing to get your head around, to be honest, until you maybe see it in a real life scenario. And I think that day's coming. But yeah, if you'd ever want to look at more theories, go on the Energy Web website, and other different kind of projects as well, which give good intricate detail of what they're trying to achieve with this aspect. Here, energy demand generation exchange, giving you more power back in regards to that, rather than being through centralized utilities and things like this that we have currently. I mean, Energy Web is partnered with massive companies already. We've talked a lot about Vodafone in the past and Ripple, how they're integrated together with EWT, Eon, EDF, Shell. We talk about those quite a lot as well. So go and check out our previous videos for that. You'll be amazed by this project. It's absolutely phenomenal. I think it's very early, and it's quite genius, really. And for those that don't know, or new to EWT or new to our videos, Energy Web Foundation is actually an older blockchain than Ethereum, apparently. So go check that out. I think that's very interesting. But yeah, this kind of information about the staking and some like unique sort of project and concept around this are, you know, coming out at a similar time that will reflect some nice chart movements, and we'll go into that right now, guys. Smash that like button if you like what you hear and see, and subscribe if you have not done so already. So look at that. The last 3 days have been fantastic for EWT. Let's just clarify exactly this kind of price move that we have seen. So the last 3 days, let's just look at that. A nice little 62% uptake in EWT. Now, I was fortunate to get a lot of my EWT around the sort of $4 mark. A lot of people, and I'll reiterate this like I did in a couple of videos recently, a lot of people look at price and they think, oh, it's too expensive, it's too cheap, and they're comparing it without perhaps looking at not necessarily the tokenomics, but the actual project itself. So supply and demand is, of course, a massive part of that, and market caps and things like this. However, you do have to sometimes also look in the intricate detail of what is this going to be in the future? Where is energy going? And particularly these kind of interlacing things like with cars, transportation, mobility, all of these aspects. So obviously the last few days or last couple of weeks we've been talking about the staking. Clearly the coding is being put in place for that, and we've had these nice little announcements of partnerships. And of course, when you have the name like BMW being integrated with your project, of course that's going to raise ears, and especially when BMW Group are retweeting or making tweets that have, you know, the hundreds of thousands of people that follow them as well. This is what gets people interested and into this space. This is how another big variable, of course, occurs when it comes to price fluctuations. So we've had the 62% rise. Of course, that could still continue, especially as people try and obtain EWT ready for the staking. What's really interesting here, guys, excuse me, is we are approaching this area that we had recently before around the 22nd of August, and clearly there's a bit of resistance there. We've had a bit of a drop down. Are we looking at trying to push this further? I do think we are. 50% up on the week, as you can see on the right hand side in these indicators. I'm just going to pull this up a bit more so you've got the full-on dial there as well. So very nice green across the board here, and the 6 months has switched into positive as well, because if you remember, like most of the charts, we had a very big sort of April and May, and then we had the big shoot down to around the 20th, 21st of July, and then we started the recovery of that, albeit slow on most charts. Like you can see, it's not until you pull the charts out you can see the documentation of this in historic data. I think it's very interesting to overview. So we're at this stage here where we saw the previous resistance at these levels and some good touch points back here in the earlier parts of the year as well. We're still, well, actually, to be fair, we're over the halfway point now. So we're on our way really to trying to approach that previous all-time high of around $23. I think exactly $23.5. So we're on our way, guys, you know, and I think we'll start achieving, you know, getting support levels above this area. There is an opportunity that we may come back down to this area that we've got on the yellow line that we drew in ages and ages ago as a really important area to think about resistance and getting past. We've done that obviously over the last 2 days. We've had a drop down below the area. I'm just going to zoom in a bit more again so you can see this. We've had a bit of a dip down on the wick, and it's come back above it now. So we're already on our way really, and the RSI down here is around 75. I still think there's room in the tank. I don't think it's going to be gigantic parabolics, because you know you have to now justify spending $15 a token, albeit I still think that's massively undervalued, but I can appreciate that out there people are trying to obtain their portfolio, and it depends on the staking method as well. I don't know what the minimum staking requirement is for EWT, so you have to kind of consider these things. But in general, I think this project's massive, but I do think there will be some corrections along the way, certainly back to this kind of level again eventually, just to test those areas, because if you look along the line here, you see some good touch points along here, including both in August and most recently as well. So I do anticipate there'll be a correction in the coming weeks perhaps before we have another big tail up, but it's really going to be down to how people perceive the information around the staking, and of course like the more partnerships that they bring to the table and the concept ideas too. So I think it's in a very healthy position. Like I said, it's been undervalued for a long time in my opinion. We've obviously been at lower regions like at the $4. Anything under $10, I was always saying across all the videos, I think it's massively undervalued, and there will come a point where people will get rid of the people that are bored or don't want to be involved in it anymore, and then we'll be able to take this up. And that's what we've done. We were strongly believing that this would occur at some point, and it has done. So like I said, I do think we might get a similar pattern here, not necessarily as big a drop, but certainly maybe coming back to test these lines properly as we did earlier today, around this sort of $11 or just over $12 mark. But I do think we're in a good little transitional period where we might start seeing a bit more of an uptake as the awareness of the staking aspect comes along. A lot of people jump in and FOMO because they go, oh, staking opportunity, oh, it's launching, brilliant, I'm going to get involved in that. And they don't even think about the historic aspects of where the chart has been in terms of price and what the project's doing, what it is about. So do your own research for sure. Go check out our previous videos of EWT. Hopefully you find them informative. There's a few rants in there as well that hopefully you'll enjoy also. But in general, guys, I truly think that in the next few years, certainly 5 to 10 years time, these kind of projects are going to be absolute giants in the making. So the way the energy sector is going for sure is definitely going to define that. So a couple more observations before we wrap this up. On the MACD here, we're in a very positive momentum, not just on the histogram of the green that you see behind it, but also the lines showcasing here the 1226 close on the 9 EMA. So very much on the moving averages, we're seeing positive movements. The RSI, as I said, is around 75. That is quite top heavy, and also be cautious of this big jump we've had in such a short space of time. Do expect some bouncing around a bit, but in general, I think we haven't hit the top lines of this for such a long time. And to confirm that, really, the last time around the 22nd, 23rd of August, when we hit in the 85 levels. So you could argue that we saw some good jump ups around these areas, and albeit, like I said, a bit of bouncing around and taking it up further. I still think that's ready for play as well. And I do believe as well, with the staking coming, that you're not going to see huge sell-offs because people are going to be accumulating this to get involved. That's for sure. Unless, of course, there's a minimum requirement, people might just sell it off. Because for now, for sure, if you were buying around that $10 mark, you're certainly going to be making some profits over these next few days and the week or so coming. And people might take that on board as well as, of course, like people like me who were buying it at even lower levels. I mean, goodness, if I was in a position a couple of years ago to understand EWT in more detail, I would love to have been involved in EWT before it even got to dollar marks. Could you imagine? But I think there is so much more for this project. I think we did a price prediction video a while back of this. I do generally believe we can definitely get really high on this one, perhaps even maybe up to the $80 mark. I still think that's massively possible, especially with the staking mechanism, other announcements coming out towards the end of this year and into the bull run, which probably is more than likely looking to go through to next year anyway. I think if we can get this momentum over that $20 mark as soon as we can, this is going to start going places and people are really going to understand what this project is about. And that's what happens in this space. It's not just about the project itself, it's about the awareness, the marketing, and partnerships, all of these great research tools that we have our ability to see and find, which would take these to another level. So like I said, right now, guys, a full recap before we wrap up. So we're on a nice take up here. I do anticipate that we can go up a bit higher than this, but equally do bear in mind that because of this big shoot up and the higher end of the RSI, that we may have a bit of a bounce down to some areas like we have done today and yesterday. We did lots of wick down, so if we do take this up, expect a bit of a small correction, but I'm sure along the line we'll have some other areas to find some potential accumulation points. But just be wary at this point in time because of the intake. Don't just FOMO in, do some research and think about it in a more conclusive way. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope you've enjoyed it. We'll catch you in the next EWT video. Bye bye.